Welcome to Screenfish Radio. I'm your I'm sorry.
Wow. I didn't know who I was talking to for a while.
I'm
You'd have just
sorry.
done this. Perfect. Perfect.
Well, we are on video now, so I mean, assuming that
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to scare anybody. I'm your host, Vengeance. No.
Whenever Batman Begins came out, I used to always be like, Rachel! Rachel!
Outstanding. Well, welcome to Screenfish Radio indeed. I'm so glad you could join us this week because we are talking about the Batman, the latest iteration and the latest vision for the famed Caped Crusader. And I am so glad this week to have with us the original Riddler himself, Wade Bearden. Welcome back, Wade.
Riddle me this. What do you call? I don't know. I don't have a riddle, but
you know, and let's just get out of the way now. I'm so glad they got it in because I didn't think they were going to get that phrase in. I was like, you gotta throw that in somewhere.
You know, I knew it was coming. They always get those in, Steve. They always do. And it's one of those things where it's like the movie could be so serious. And yet they would say, somewhere, riddle me this. And you would laugh because they got it in.
Why so serious, Wade?
Why so serious? No, I knew it was coming. I was like, it's coming. It'll be here. It's just only a matter of time.
But he didn't even say it. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We'll get to that. But Wade, before we talk about the Batman, I mean, there are some pretty key questions that I thought we should, really important to the heart of the matter. Rapid fire some questions about Batman. I'd like to know your thoughts and your feelings.
Let's do it. I love Batman's my favorite superhero.
Okay, well let's cut right to it. Best Batman.
Oh man.
Right to it. First, best Batman on screen.
On screen. The voice was it Michael Conroy from the animated series? On screen,
Kevin Conroy. That's a good pick. Yeah. I respect that pick.
I got it wrong. I can't believe I got it wrong. That would probably, man, he's just so good. I would probably say it's hard because I have this. This is my who's the best Bruce Wayne? Who's the better Batman? I think.
Well, that was the next question.
But overall, I'm just gonna say, Christian Bale
as best Batman.
I was gonna say overall. Anyone. Oh, you're talking about
Batman.
Just best Batman. Oh man. I think Robert Pattinson does a really good job. I think he's really good. I think he might be one of my favorites. I think he might be one of my favorites.
Okay. All right. It's a fair pick, especially since he's mostly Batman in this. It's amazing.
Yes.
Little Bruce Wayne is in this movie. So I respect that pick. I was actually going to say Kevin Conroy myself. I thought that, but I would also be happy with Bale. But having said that, best Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I think I like Bale a lot as Bruce Wayne, just because you can just kind of look at him on the screen. He can just kind of smile as Bruce Wayne and like it just works. And he's so snobbish as Bruce Wayne. He's playing that character, and he seems to have a lot of fun with the role. I don't know if we're giving Michael Keaton enough love. All around, he's one of the better Bruce Wayne Batman combinations. But I just really love the Dark Knight trilogy from Christopher Nolan. So I think I would say Bale. I don't know what the general consensus is. Like, I think most people don't like him in the suit, or like they say, oh, he's not as good in the suit, Bale, and he's better as Bruce Wayne. I'm not sure, but I like him as Bruce Wayne.
I see. That's fair. I'd go Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Yeah,
and a lot of
he's great.
people think he's the best Batman. Like, I think he's an iconic Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's the best Batman. I'd be happy. I'd be happy with Conroy. I'm even happy with Pattinson
Mm-hmm.
or Bale. But I don't. To me, Michael Keaton isn't the best Batman. I think he's a great Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
Yeah,
feel like Kilmer is underrated. Uh,
he might be. I just don't watch Batman Forever very often. Like I
well,
just
see, that's your problem.
I've actually seen Batman and Robin more than I've seen Batman Forever. I think Batman Forever is better. But yeah, I just haven't seen it too much. But I don't think he's bad. And we haven't mentioned Ben Affleck. I think Ben Affleck is pretty good just all around, like in multiple different ways. I like him. I thought he was a good casting choice.
I thought Affleck was great for the type of Batman they wanted for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
See, because every iteration wants to give you something a little bit different than the previous one, right? And I think the idea of an aging, frustrated Batman who's sort of done with it, well, that seems like an Affleck, thing to me.
Seems like a guy, just seems like him in general, right?
He's struggling to keep it together and
just trying.
He's back with J-Lo. Good for him.
Hope he's happy. Yeah,
I do. I wish him the best.
I have nothing against him.
Neither do I. I can't believe he didn't mention Clooney, but anyway, we'll
I don't know if I have anything. Yeah, no, I just don't have
biggest regret. Biggest regret is Batman. Is that what we put right for Clooney?
I'm not like angry about him as Batman. I don't know what to say. It happened.
I think he's angrier about it than anybody else. Like every interview it comes up, he apologizes for being Batman. Yeah. It's kind of like best Joker.
Oh, Heath Ledger. Yeah. I mean, Mark Hamill is so good. So it would be a close second, but Heath Ledger just he's so frightening in that movie. I just remember watching that movie for the first time in theaters. One of the best experiences, The Dark Knight in theaters for me personally. And he just was frightening. And then when he burns all of the money, the characterization is incredible.
No love for Cesar Romero? I mean, no.
Jared Leto? What?
No, Jared. Oh yeah, that's right. Well, who played him in the Joker movie? I forget. Phoenix.
Oh yeah, Joaquin Phoenix. I wasn't a huge fan of that project. He was fine.
I thought he was okay.
He's fine.
Or Nicholson. Well, Nicholson is actually more like Cesar Romero than any of the others. Yeah, I mean, Ledger is the popular choice, and I think he's probably the right choice. But I think there's some love of Phoenix there because, again, I think Phoenix may be scarier than Ledger because they put a humanity to him that really rips apart his character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't care for that movie, so I think that probably hurts it. Phoenix is he's such a good performer, and to see him go from something like that, and I think the next movie I saw from him was Come On from last year, which is it just missed my top 10. And to see him do both of those, he has so much range. He's such a good actor.
Yeah, he really is. Best non-Joker performance of a villain. Any villain.
I'd say Michelle Pfeiffer is a good one.
Oh, good pick. Yeah.
And I would say maybe a second would be, do I pronounce this? Cillian Murphy? Is that how I pronounce his name?
I think I'm not sure actually. I've heard
Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. I think that performance is really great too. But Michelle Pfeiffer is probably number one for me.
Yeah, I might go with Pfeiffer. I would be willing to have a conversation about Dano as the Riddler. I think that the villains in this film that we're going to talk about in a minute, the villains in the Batman are absolutely stellar. across the board. And I think that Dano, I really like Dano's work, or Colin Farrell's Penguin, which is like,
he's great.
he
I think,
really is.
I think I like Zoe Kravitz, and I'll go into like we'll talk about that. I think she has a good performance. Very good. I could see other people pulling off that role. I don't see very many people, at least at that time period, very many actresses doing what Michelle Pfeiffer does. Like, it just feels like she's one of the few people that could have done that in that way. And so that's why I could even see someone, I think Paul Dano is great. I think he's fantastic. I could probably see someone else doing that, doing what needs to be done in that role, whether they're better or not. I could see them achieving that. But Michelle Pfeiffer, she just seems like she just embraces it. She has so much fun. There's a lot there. I mean, she's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, the timing is what's amazing. No love for Halle Berry.
Well, she wasn't in a Batman movie.
That's true. It's true.
She was in her own movie. There's this scene. Go watch like the basketball scene from that movie.
No.
Just go watch it. If you haven't in a long time, all the viewers, just search like Halle Berry Catwoman basketball scene. You have never seen anything like that.
And hopefully never
it's
will.
Buck wild.
It is. It's nuts. It's nuts.
The performances, the editing, the camera selection. It's a trifecta. Go check it out.
And you should really check out the pitch meeting for Catwoman if you ever watch pitch meetings, because they're just they rip that scene anew and it's beautiful.
Oh man.
You know what I'm gonna show some love, and this ties into, I guess, the new film. One of my favorite villain performances is Frank Gorshian as the Riddler from the 1960 TV series.
Oh,
there are two Riddler. People forget that there are like more than one who am I thinking of? Catwoman, Julie Newmar as Catwoman.
Oh man, she's great. I forgot about all that. Yeah. I forgot about those.
Gorshian, I absolutely love. Like, Gorshian's Riddler was iconic for me as a kid growing up watching that on reruns. I'm not that old. But I mean, I just that was reason. Like, I fell in love with the Riddler because of Frank Gorshian, and so I gotta give a shout out to there. So okay, here we go. The big one. Favorite Batman film or iteration?
Well, first, I'm gonna have to jump back a bit. Favorite Alfred, I'm going with Michael Caine.
Oh yes.
That just came to me. I was like, I just love Michael Caine. He's pretty amazing. Yeah,
the one in Gotham is really good. Sorry, the one in Gotham is really good too. I forgot about Gotham. Gotham had some very interesting characters.
I think I've seen like the first season. I think I've seen the first season of that.
Keep going. Season 2 is so much better.
I need to
so
watch
good.
It. Yes. So I love The Dark Knight. Like, I think The Dark Knight is fantastic. Batman Returns is really great, but I'm a huge fan of what Christopher Nolan did with that series, and all three of those films are films that I could kind of watch over and over again. I love the television show and the movie from the 1960s. I've watched all those episodes. I've seen that movie so many times. And then it's so funny though, when we talk about Batman movies, I always separate that because it's just so different. And of course, Batman as a whole takes this turn like in the 1980s and just begins to do some other stuff, comics and then the films. But yes, I'll say this: Batman is my favorite superhero. Has always been my favorite superhero, and I feel so fortunate because he has the best movies. I feel like, and even like the animated series. I still watch the animated series from the 90s, and that is just a great piece of storytelling and characterization. We've seen some really good stuff. Batman Beyond, I enjoyed that. But yeah, I just feel fortunate because I'm like, man, we have the best movies. We've got some of the best television shows. How about you? What's your favorite version or film?
Well, I know the right answer is the Nolan films, and especially
Mhm.
Dark Knight. I know it's the right answer. Of all of them, it's still the only one that I thought deserved awards love. Like, and I don't just mean for the, I just thought like the Dark Knight is still, I think, pretty much the perfect film. I gotta go with the love for Batman Forever as my
Mhm.
favorite. And I'll tell you why. I was the right age. I was 18. I was not in love. Like after Batman Returns, I remember like just be like, what have you done? What I am not one of the few, or I'm one of the few rather that's still like I don't get that one.
Mhm.
Like I know so many people it's like their favorite one. I'm like, I don't know why. Um and I like Batman Forever for a couple of reasons. Again, Riddler is my favorite villain. He always has
Mhm.
been. I know people say he's a stripped down Joker. I get it. But there's some wonderful, and I thought Jim Carrey is the Riddler. A lot of people just thought it was over the top, and it is. It's nuts, but it's like Jim Carrey at his peak. This is like
Mhm.
peak, like he owned the decade, and this is like right in there. And I thought that the film Tim Burton is still attached to the franchise. People forget that. All they
Mhm.
see is the neon color, and it's nuts. Like the movie's nuts. Believe me, I know it's nuts. Apparently, Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey through the entire film, hated his guts. Like, you know, he was coming off an Oscar win. Now he's got half his face painted purple. Um, but it just hit the right notes for me then, and it will always have a soft spot, even though I know it's not the best one. I'm saying it's my favorite.
Yeah.
And I
There
will
there's
watch.
like a cult following around that film. Like it's just there are a lot of people who really love that
Yeah,
movie.
like I said, I mean, a Riddler, and we'll talk about the Riddler. Riddler's my favorite villain. There have been four on screen, well, five technically on screen iterations of the Riddler live action, and all of them are so different.
Mm.
Because Gorshian did it in the series, but also, and people forget this, Don Adams, who was Don Aston, who played uh, Adams, the dad in the Adams Family, was also the Riddler in the series.
Mm.
Then Jim Carrey did it. Then there's some tremendous work at the guy from Gotham. I gotta look up his name because he is really really good. And then we've got, of course, what's his name here? His name is, oh, I've got him here. Anyway, I can't figure out what the actor's name is, but my
Mhm.
goodness, he's good. He is good. And Corey Michael Smith. And now of course we've got Paul Dano, and every one of them is so different.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so I have the love. I know it's not a good one. I
Hey,
mean,
just
you're gonna
like
have Batman go, women, it's
right.
not good, but it's
Oh
my
gosh.
favorite.
Hey, another film, based off of the animated series Mask of the
Fantastic.
Phantasm. Yeah, that was great. I own that. I like that one. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we've done the dance. We've done the dance, Wade. Let's talk about the Batman. The Batman is written and directed by Matt Reeves, and returns us to Gotham City as the Batman ventures into the underworld, where a sadistic killer leaves behind a trail of cryptic clues. As the evidence begins to lead closer to home and the scale of the perpetrator's plans become clear, he must forge new relationships, unmask the culprit, and bring justice to the abuse of power and corruption that has long plagued the metropolis. As always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers. What'd you
Mhm.
think of it? What did you think of Matt Reeves' vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this joke that people use or can use about the franchise, and it's like, hey, let's make a gritty Batman movie. And then the next director comes along and says, let's make this even grittier and darker. And then we get the Batman, which people have aptly compared it to something like Zodiac or even David Fincher's Seven. It's very dark, it's very grimy. It is one of those films that feels connected to this trend to take some of the darker graphic novels, particularly Frank Miller's vision, and bring that to life. And so that's what we get here. I thought it was fantastic. I thought that the first section of the film was one of the stronger Batman movies that we've seen in a long time, maybe even stronger than certain elements within The Dark Knight. As a whole, I think the movie stumbles in the second half. It's kind of long. It's just, I think, just under 3 hours. But I think Matt Reeves gives us the beginnings of the world's greatest detective. And it's nice to watch Pattinson's Batman work as a detective for large stretches of the film. There are not a lot of, we get a big car chase in the second half, but there are not a lot of huge action sequences in this movie until later. We get to follow Pattinson around. We get to follow Lieutenant Gordon around and just kind of watch them piece together this mystery. And in my opinion, I thought that was well done. I thought it was fantastic. When we get some of the other elements, the film feels a little overstuffed, even pieced together at the end. But I like this fit. I like this vision. I like this take. And I think I've said this before. I would love to give the Batman franchise to 4 different directors and let each of them make a movie not connected to each other with their own vision of Batman, because he's that type of character. There have been so many iterations of Batman, whether it's the campy or the Burton or the Frank Miller or whatever, that these types of stories can be made. And I think this version's really good. I'm sure we'll get a sequel, but I'm also looking forward to, in, I don't know, maybe another 10 years when another director takes on Batman and gives us something hopefully different. It's just the way the character is, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I respect that. I'm a huge Matt Reeves fan because it feels like, and I could be wrong, it feels like as big as he is, not many people know who he is. And yet, I mean, he has made some surprisingly amazing films relatively early on in his career. I mean, Cloverfield was him, and I remember Cloverfield could have been just, I mean, it was goofy, but it was also,
I love
very
Cloverfield. I think it's a great
really well done
monster film.
It really is. But where he really sinks the landing for me, or sticks the landing for me, is the final 2 Planet of the Apes films, which, you know, the reality is, I know so many people that said, I don't like the old ones, so I'm not going to watch the Planet of the Apes films. And for every one of them, I was like, you have to see them. Like, they are, especially Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is their Dark Knight. It is really interesting. And it's like, people just think of the little, from the 1960s or something like that. He takes this franchise and gives it a soul. And War of the Planet of the Apes as well. It's a gritty war film. It's like watching Saving Private Ryan with apes. Like, it's like this, it's wild. So when he got the Batman, I was really excited. And I will admit that, like, I'm okay if I know that Warner Brothers needs a Batman movie every 6 months. I understand that that's what they need to keep their financials up. But I was okay with a little bit of a bat break. We just went through this whole thing with the Justice League. If you count the Snyder Cut, we technically had a Batman movie 8 months ago.
Yeah, that's great. And there's still kind of like in that franchise, like in that series,
Yeah.
that universe, like they're doing the Flash and then Shazam's kind of a part. It does feel a little strange that we're getting this Matt Reeves picture.
Well, and Superman and Wonder Woman were originally referenced in the first act, and they cut it because they
Okay.
now how so you're gonna get here's a spoiler, you're gonna get a mixed review of me on this film, and it's not because I don't think it's very good, it's because I still don't know how I feel about it. But I will say this. I said
Yeah.
I think the villains in it are phenomenal. Every performance is excellent across the board. Now we talk a little bit about the Zoe Kravitz. Maybe somebody else could have played that character, or maybe even Paul Dano. But they, with them in it, they were incredible. They
Yeah,
were
they were
great.
good.
The
Yeah.
way that Reeves conceives Gotham City is incredible. I've read a couple of things. One of the things I really liked is they said when in every other iteration, Batman is sort of this guy who lives in the suburbs, and he comes into the city and then he goes home. And he said we put it right into the city, so the Batcave is like in the sewer system of Gotham. It's everything is connected. Um, like you said, it's a little long, but but you're right. Like this really is the first time we get to see him be a detective. I also don't really think he's very good at being Batman, and I don't mean Pattinson himself. I think we've got a Batman, unlike Nolan's version where he was becoming Batman in Batman Begins. I didn't get the sense in Batman Begins that he still didn't know how to be Batman, if that makes any sense. Like once he decides he's Batman, he's Batman.
Yeah.
This is a very different look.
You have him sort of training to become Batman and working through like grappling hooks and all that. But once he nails it, he's fine. Here, Pattinson is like year 2, and he doesn't have that sort of finesse that Bale's character has when he's jumping from building to building, or he's using those grappling hooks. He's still getting the hang of it. Even his driving skills during that really great chase sequence, like they're good, but he's not a professional driver. And that's fascinating to see. He doesn't have Lucius Fox here
Yeah, there's like
either.
no gadgets, hardly anything.
It's whatever he builds. And so that's why you get the Batmobile, which is sort of this Mad Max vehicle of sorts. And his fighting style is, of course, pretty brutal, but it's not polished. It doesn't have the some of the elements of martial arts that I would say that you see in Bale's films, and he gets hit more than I think Bale does in his movies. He's still trying to work through it, and I think part of that too is the very earthy, grimy aesthetic. You watch Nolan's Batman movies, and I remember watching that, and I was like, man, he makes it feel like this guy could be Batman in the real world. Like this is a very grounded. And then you watch this, and you're like this is even more grounded. He's got like a real car that he just souped up. So there's definitely those elements to this character here.
Yeah, I like that you pointed that out. And I'll tell you the parts that kept me catching me off guard is it takes them like 80% of the film to do the Batman disappear. You know what I mean? It's like he walks into the room everywhere, and I'm like, dude, like even that opening scene where he appears, he just sort of hulks up and walks into the sewer, and I'm like, even Michael Keaton didn't do that. Like Michael Keaton he was like coming out of the shadows and all this stuff. He just like, let's go, and he like walks in. And then when he like there's scenes where he walks through the police with Commissioner Gordon, and I'm like, this is a very out there Batman. Like he's not doing the here I am, now I'm gone. Like he's just like, there's scenes where he just leaves the room and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
there he goes.
And you're like, wait, I guess he goes out the back because they're like talking about media being in the front. It is fascinating to look at, like you said, that opening scene where you see him for the first time, and then the murder scene, and compare that to Bale in Batman Begins down at the docks where he captures Falcone. In Batman Begins, he's sort of this ghost, and we really don't see him fighting. We see these characters being pulled up. We do see him kind of hitting at times, but he is a ghost. Here, he is just kind of, and I love that scene where he goes into the murder scene and he just kind of just walking, and everybody's kind of just like looking at him. And Pattinson doesn't need to really say hardly anything. He's just observing. I really do like that take. Not that take is better than Nolan's.
Yeah.
I just talked about how much I love, Nolan's films, but it's a different take. And I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. I mean, it was funny. A friend of mine messaged me and they said, like, what else we've seen everything. What else is this going to bring? Mm-hmm. And I just said to him, every generation needs their Batman, mm-hmm. Like, even the James Bond films, which all of them are different. Like every James Bond is different and brings their own things. I feel like every Batman tries even harder to speak for and into its own culture, increasingly more so as it goes along. Once you get and sort of mark it into a place. Like it's interesting to me now that we've had, what is it? 1, 2, 5, 6 Batmans on, like in the last 30 years, 6 Batmans, which is like crazy to think about.
Wow.
And with this particular vision, I thought Pattinson was a great Batman. I have heard, and actually, I didn't like him as Bruce Wayne. I will say though that I heard, I think it was either a tweet or maybe it was in that same article that I read, where they referred to this though as the origin story of Bruce Wayne. And that's changed his opinion to me. I thought, you know what? Okay, now I'm in, because if we're going to get a Bruce Wayne, like we didn't, this movie is called The Batman. He is the Batman. That's all he is. And Bruce Wayne is, like just full on dark makeup. Like he can't even separate himself from the character he's created. But if this is a birth of Bruce Wayne, then I mean, I'm much happier. I thought that was a really interesting way to describe the film.
I would say, I think that this Bruce Wayne does separate himself from the Batman. One of the weakest parts of the film for me is the underdevelopment of the Bruce Wayne character. And I think I'm disappointed because I saw glimpses of some sort of development. And I like what you said, sort of the origin story of Bruce Wayne. When Pattinson doesn't have the costume on, he kind of stumbles over his words. He comes across as this very lost and an almost weak young adult. And there was this point in the film when one of the few times where he's Bruce Wayne and there's danger. And I for just a second, I thought to myself, maybe Batman will come, because his demeanor was almost, for me, completely separated from who he was in The Mask. And when he does put the mask on, his presence changes completely, to the point that I could see, oh yeah, like I know why people don't think that he's Batman, because he couldn't possibly be Batman. Like this Bruce Wayne is weak, he's depressed, he's all these things. He couldn't possibly be the Dark Knight. But saying that, because that material was a little underdeveloped, I felt like the film suffered a bit. And it comes across too with Alfred's character. His character is underdeveloped. And so when his character is put in danger when Andy Serkis is injured, it doesn't have that emotional connection that I think maybe Reeves and the rest of the team wanted it to have.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I mean, this movie at 3 hours probably could have been 4 hours or 5 hours if they'd done all, like the amount of characters they introduce in this film is staggering to me when you consider the fact that we were complaining back in the Batman Forever days that they had too many villains. Like they
Right.
just introduce everybody's in this pretty much. Like, let's just throw them all in there. Andy Serkis's Alfred reminds me a great deal of the one that they have in Gotham. Because every other iteration of Alfred, even Michael Caine, is there as an emotional support. But you can tell that Andy Serkis there's a bit more of an edge to him in some ways, where I sort of feel like he's taking on almost a parental role. In some ways, I think that I like what you're saying there, but almost an immaturity in the Bruce Wayne, so like the young adult Bruce Wayne. See, and I can see that you're talking about your separation, because you're right. Like in a public setting, he would be, you would see him as a weak character who couldn't possibly be this vigilante. But it was funny, like in the scenes where he was Bruce Wayne, I saw the same unsettled rage in his eyes, and maybe it was the makeup, maybe not, but I mean, there was an immaturity. Like he's really grappling with he's carrying his inner demons in this film. Not like, and going back to other iterations, we've seen him trying to deal with how he feels. This one is just trying to take it out on other people, which is really, really interesting. And also, one of the things that, I don't know, frustrated is the word. But it didn't frustrate me at all. But I was like, man, this is so dark. What does it mean to be like, you know, what does it mean to be the hero in this film? Maybe that's the point. I don't know, but you know, in this particular vision, I was not used to seeing a Batman who cared, almost seemed to care very little about being a hero. But I don't know. I was wondering what you think about the nature of heroes in this film. What do you think the film has to say about heroes? Is Batman a hero in this? And he doesn't, nobody calls him Batman except the Riddler. I think that's so fascinating. They refer to him as Vengeance the entire time.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, because with the plethora of superhero films, and I really like the Marvel movies. I like them a lot. I like the television shows. But in terms of their characters, it's pretty black and white. The heroes are good or they're not good. And so naturally, what we can expect to see in popular culture is filmmakers and storytellers being interested, and we've seen this in comics before too, right? But being interested in examining superheroes from a different light. And so Amazon has The Boys. I think The Peacekeeper is the HBO Max series. And you have this one, and like I said, this is nothing new. People who are comic book fans will understand, like, the idea of kind of looking inside what it means to be a hero is not a new theme. But here you have the issue of what does it mean to be a vigilante? Like, what does it mean to be a hero? And is that always a good thing? And that's really kind of the main question. I think it pushes it really hard, sometimes in positive ways, sometimes in negative ways. But you'll notice this clear connection between Paul Dano's The Riddler and Pattinson. And the film is making this pretty explicit. The very first shot of the film, the Riddler is looking through some binoculars. He's watching. Later on in the movie, we get extended periods of time where Pattinson is looking through binoculars, and you get almost the same POV shot.
Yeah, you do.
You later learn that the Riddler is writing about his day. He's keeping kind of a journal, and Pattinson's Batman does the same exact thing. They wear masks, all that stuff. And here's what I found fascinating throughout the movie is up until the point where the Riddler tries to hurt Bruce Wayne and ends up hurting Alfred, he's only gone after really bad people. And the difference between him and Batman is that he just killed them brutally, right? He killed them instead of bringing them to justice, whereas Batman would go after the same exact people. He would scare them. He would freak them out. He just wouldn't kill them. He would try to take them to the police. And I thought this was very much this connection of, okay, what does it mean to bring darkness to the light? And what's a good way to do it? And what's a bad way to do it? We see somebody who's actually trying in a way to clean up the city. He's just murdering people to do it. And that comparison between the two, very explicit, I think, in my opinion. And it's also something that pauses us, encourages us to pause and say, okay, who are the good and who are the bad? And there's always that joke in comics, Batman comics or movies or television shows and all this stuff. It's like, or fans, just people talking about it is, oh, why doesn't Batman just kill the Joker so that he won't hurt anyone anymore? This is a film that actually takes that question pretty seriously, but just puts it on the Riddler and says, okay, what if the Riddler was Batman who killed people who did wrong? And that's kind of what you get. Now, obviously that comparison goes off the rails because he's killing innocent people. He brutally tortures them and he murders them. But I found that to be a really interesting connection because the Riddler is concerned in some ways of like cleaning up Gotham to a point, and then he kind of goes, wherever, and he's trying to kill innocent individuals.
Yeah, I loved that. That was one thing I loved, was the psychological breakdown and of between the Riddler and Batman. And again, like I said, huge Riddler fan, and I thought they did it justice. I mean, he looks like a serial killer in the pictures, so no gold canes and bolo hats in this one.
Green jackets
with question, he's still got the question marks, but like I actually like the fact that it gives the Riddler some credit in this, and he's actually outsmarting Batman, and so like he actually gets Batman to do what he wants him to do, which is what the Riddler should do. Like there's very rare, like he wasn't just a guy trying to trick him. He wanted to prove how much smarter he was than this guy.
And I love the detour where we go off and the characters chase down Colin Farrell's Penguin.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where you're like, oh, that's not what the clue was leading to. And it takes a little bit of time in the narrative, but it just shows like being a detective, you're like, you're chasing dead ends at times.
Yeah. And I appreciated that, I appreciate that aspect. I think, and maybe it was just that I found it unsettling, but it was really, really accurate in the sense of, I think we live at a time where we as a culture are deconstructing our heroes. Like the last 5 years have been about us finding out stories about other people that we thought that were highly respected or what have you. And it's like, hold on, they're really not. And we see that in this film, even to the point that I liked what they did with Thomas Wayne in this one. Hold on. Maybe Thomas Wayne has been held up as the golden child in almost every film other than Joker, which gives a little bit of an edge to him. Every other version, he's a saint. And they said, well, you know what? Sometimes saints are flawed. And I think it's interesting here because you see how, I mean, Riddler is doing that. He's saying, you think they're great, but no, they are not. And then, and I get the sense that for like, for Bruce Wayne, for Batman, this rage, this vengeance is coming out of, what of course happened to his parents, because it always does. And now he's finding out this dad that I've held up in high regard may have some scars of his own. What is, and it just deconstructs that. And I think there's something really powerful about that in this film. Like, it almost sort of says, don't hold up, be careful who you hold in high esteem. But the film, this is where I think this is why I think the film is so dark, is not the lighting, which my friend leaned over to me and he said the lighting budget for this film must have been about $5. It's like, fair comment. But the I think the real darkness of this film is the fact that there's really almost no one to look up to, because they tie the Riddler into Batman so much, because there's this close line between well, like vengeance and justice. I mean, he identifies as vengeance. He identifies as vengeance. He doesn't they talk about justice, but he doesn't identify as justice. And I think that's a really interesting take on Batman. But man, that's where I came out of the movie almost unsettled, because I was like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to having a hero that is so grounded that I've been told, he's really not that much of a hero, maybe. Or at least that hero has no heroes. I don't even know if I'm making any sense at this point, but
I mean, and you could argue one way that this is a thorough examination of a Batman type character in our real world, because comic book culture has leapt off the pages and really kind of it's everywhere. You could argue that this film is pessimistic and deconstructs the idea of this type of hero. I am interested in what a sequel would be like. Does Pattinson's Batman get to that particular place where he is someone that we could look up to? Or maybe the series and maybe the film is saying a person who puts a mask on every night and beats up individuals in the street can be good, but how good could they be? And perhaps that's it. I really love I think one of the MVPs of this film is the score by Michael Giacchino. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And his theme for Batman is simple, but it's extremely effective. And then notice to this reoccurring return to Schubert's Ave Maria.
Yes.
This sort of opera tune. And I love that. I love the way the film works that piece of music into the story, because it has a couple of different like thematic resonances. So one, it just because it's opera, it seems to communicate this poshness, if you will. And if you're looking at a story of, you've got the rich and you've got the poor, I think that's fascinating. The idea too of Bruce Wayne growing up very rich and his life turning out very different than Paul Dano's character who didn't have money.
I love that comparison, by the way. I thought that was fascinating. I thought it was great.
And just kind of the two there. And then also knowing that Batman's parents were lost when you went to the opera, you're hearing that and that music has become sort of a basis for the trauma that's inside of him that he's kind of carrying.
Yeah. I think like the score in this is absolutely stunning. This is the thing. I thought the film was beautifully made. I thought the performances are solid, but of a Batman film, to me, I found it unsettling, and I don't mean that in a bad way necessarily. It's not like, well, it's not a good movie because it's unsettling. That's not what I'm saying at all. It is. It really is. But I came out of it saying, whoa, like just whoa. Even the Dark Knight, even on the heaviest note that Dark Knight ends with him being hunted for the murder of Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
It still didn't feel as weighted as heavy as the final moments of this film in so many ways. And it sort of left me with pause. And I do think it's interesting, like you said, what does it look like in a sequel? I think what excited me most was him at the end saying, I love that, or was him at the end talking about how he needs to inspire as opposed to get vengeance. That to me was the moment of hope. That was the break in the light. A little,
and I love the shot that comes just before that, where he's leading those people out of the wreckage, and he's got that flare, and they're kind of following him. And I think that's kind of where the hope of the movie lies, in that he becomes this figure for justice, this figure for the new Gotham. Because, I mean, he says at the beginning, he's been doing this for how long, and the city hasn't gotten better. And you see some of this stuff happening in Gotham, you're like, how can it get better? But he becomes that figure for hope, I think, near the end.
I'm glad you said that, because I'd forgotten about that line. And that to me is another, like I said, just I'm still processing this film. Like it's so layered in a number of ways. And you're right, the city hasn't gotten any better. And I think that this Batman is more tied to Gotham than any other Batman we've ever seen. I think the not just the fact that he lives in Gotham, I feel like maybe he's trying to do things a little bit better, but he's still doing it the Gotham way. Maybe that's what the difference is. And he's he's kind of working with the police, but he doesn't trust the police either. Even Commissioner Gordon says, like, we've been working together for 2 years, you haven't told me your name. Like there's he's still, I mean, there's been, everything he's done has caused no help. It's caused no change until he changes. And I think that final scene where, I mean, I don't know why they needed 100 Riddler cosplayers. So I guess it's just because they needed to end on a big set piece. But the scene where the guy takes off the masks and he says, "I am vengeance," I thought that was a great moment, because that, to me, that summed up the film. I was like, okay, all right, okay, so maybe this has all been about him finding a soul.
Yeah, it is, and I totally understand how you feel about kind of the heaviness. There really is no escape, and I think sometimes it's a little over the top. My wife Priscilla was saying how Gotham Manor is this like strange Gothic cathedral. I mean, it's so incredibly dark. He doesn't even have the warmth of a home that we as a viewer can return to. So there really is, there's almost no light until near the end, which I think the relationship between Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, I think that brings some warmth to the picture, and I think that was done really well. Though I will say, I found myself a little conflicted about Catwoman's arc in this story, because it's just a lot. You've got all these revelations about the Waynes, about Falcone, that she's his daughter, the plan with the Riddler. It's just so much, and I don't think the film finds a rhythm to get that third act where it needs to be, because we get that scene where Kravitz kind of gets her, Selena Kyle gets her moment, like her emotional climax, and then the film just kind of drops down again, and then we get that big fight scene at the end with all those Riddlers, which it's okay. I don't know. It felt like it was a little hokey, but I think the main problem is the movie's just kind of creating a rhythm to that ending. It feels like it's almost over, and then it's like, no, we got more to go. Like, that's not the climax of the picture. And so I do worry. I do wonder if Selena Kyle's story needed to be toned down a bit in order to fit in everything that Reeves wanted to fit in.
I think that's possible. We haven't talked about that story at all. I think in so many ways, I think she's sort of, I see their relationship. I think she's wonderful in this film. I think she's a great Catwoman. I loved her in the role. I thought she was, again, I like that you said she's almost the light in this film. I don't know whether she's a girlfriend or his mother. And I don't mean that literally, because
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, like, there's, in many ways, she's sort of the soul of the film, and some, or his, because he's just dead inside. Like, the
Mhm.
whole movie, this is like Batman is just dead inside. And I know the Batman is sort of dead inside, like that's sort of his arc. But I mean, without her in this film, like, she's the closest thing to any form of attachment he has. Even with Alfred, he sort of, the most he ever
Mhm.
does with Alfred that shows any empathy is when he tries to call him and say, don't, you're going to get blown up. It's like,
When you
and
take away Bruce Wayne from a
yeah,
Batman story, it does lose some of that optimism, or at least some of the balance between the darkness of Batman.
it's true. It would be interesting to see. And of course, I have heard nothing about this, and it's probably not going to be that, but it would be in the original, or in the Nolan movies, they had the Batman Begins, and then they switched it up to Dark Knight in the second
Mhm.
one. It'd be interesting to see if they went with almost like a Bruce Wayne look for the sequel to
Mhm.
this,
Yeah.
because yeah, like, that is an excellent point. Without Bruce Wayne, I mean, and maybe that's the point. He is out of balance through the entire film. He's out of balance. And then you've got Riddler saying, I'm the one keeping you in balance. Like, you've got this kid who's trying to figure out his way, and he's not much of a kid. He's like 27 or 28 years old, but um it is interesting, losing that balance. And like I said, like, the line between vengeance and justice in this film, I
Mhm.
think, is wafer thin,
Mhm.
wafer thin. And I don't know, because the one who talks about justice is the Riddler.
Mhm. Well,
Batman talks about vengeance.
think about this way. If the Riddler hadn't have started everything, Batman would be, or the Gotham would be much more corrupt than it is at the end of the movie. He
Wow. Yeah.
his instigation helped clean up the city. So I think the film is kind of like making a point, like, vengeance and just quote unquote justice at what cost? And that's why I almost think the end of the movie, where all those Riddler people were just going to go shoot everybody up, I think that sort of betrays some of these thematic elements, because, oh well, the Riddler's just a terrible person like everybody else.
Yeah.
When the film is trying to make those comparisons to Batman.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, but yeah. Yeah. In having the giant set piece, it may lose that subtlety, but it also may, I don't know, maybe it makes it a little clearer, makes it a little easier. Like, this is the first Batman I've ever seen that looks like he's contemplating suicide. Like, there's a moment
Yes.
where
Yes.
you can tell that it's like, I can end this right
Mm-hmm.
here. And I remember being horrified by that, because
Mm-hmm.
again, I still want to believe in heroes, and that doesn't mean, but I also, at the same time, I also appreciate the fact that this film sort of deconstructed that, and said, well,
Mm-hmm.
wait a second, what does it mean? Like, who are you putting your faith in? Um, and there, that moment, oh man, I remember watching that, saying no. Like, that was like, what are the there was genuine fear. Is
Yeah.
Batman going to kill himself, just like, not just for justice, but just because he can? Like,
It,
uh,
y- when Captain America: The Winter Soldier was released, Brett McCracken wrote a review. I think it was for Christianity Today. I think The Winter Soldier is the best MCU movie, and so I didn't necessarily agree on his review. He's pretty negative towards the film, but he made this interesting point, and he talked about how in the movie you get these kind of like superheroes just kind of like punching each other and nothing really happens. Like, they're just almost invincible in a way. Like, they can
yeah,
just get hit and hit, and it takes the physicality away from these beings. And you have to go back and read the article if it's still live, but McCracken talks about how, as Christians, we take the incarnation, the flesh, seriously. And when we watch these movies, there's something a bit off about all of this, this constant barrage of violence that doesn't do anything to the body. And so watching a film like this, I thought about that review, and I thought about just the physical toll and the mental toll that violence inflicts on its characters, particularly Batman. Can you keep hitting someone over and over and over again, night after night, and it not take a toll on you? And so I think those ideas are, I don't know. I think that they're worth contemplating. And I mentioned the cinematography. Greg Fraser, some of these silhouettes and some of these images, sunrise or sunsets, they help to, I think, add some ambiguity to this character and kind of produce this vision of what it means to be a superhero.
Yeah, the cinematography in this is stunning when you can see what's going on.
I will say this. So one of the big criticisms I hear from people about Nolan's is they don't think he directs action sequences well. I think that's overblown. I think an example of maybe where he doesn't do direct action sequence super well is in The Dark Knight Rises, where they just start kind of like punching each other in the street. It's just kind of messy. It's really fascinating to see the cinematography here, and we actually get these real nice kind of longer shots where we get to see the choreography. We get to see some of these punches land. And that was pretty invigorating.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, I still think that the darkest timeline is shaky cam fights. I would
You're like the Bourne Ultimatum and Supremacy, like those, that's the golden age.
I mean, that's the Bourne Identity. I remember like, oh man, these set pieces are wild. Yeah. And then it was like, now you can you feel it? There's action happening. And I was like, whoa, what have we done?
I love those movies though. They're some of my favorite action movies. I love those.
Oh, but they're anyway, great car chases. Anyway, yeah, I think that. So, well, okay, Wade. I mean, we could keep talking about this, but I think we should start to wind down here. Let's screen it or skip it. The Batman, screen it or skip it.
Screen it. You got to go see it in theaters. Yeah, I've talked to some of the negative aspects, but man, I'm a Batman fan. We get the best movies, and this one's, I think, really good. So go screen it.
You know, it's a screen it for me.
You sound a little reserved. You sound like you're on the edge, like that edge between justice and vengeance here.
I was wafer thin.
It's wafer thin.
No, here, honestly, like I said to you before, I feel like I need to see it again because I know it's good. In fact, I know it's very good. But it was so different that for me it was a little unsettling.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I saw it on a Saturday night at like 8:00. And this guy and his wife walk in with their 6-year-old kid.
Nope.
And I'm like, have you watched the trailer?
Nope.
I mean, I'm like, this, and I don't want to sound like, you know, some sort of idiot that's like, I need my Batman to be fun. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I'm ready. I want the grit. And it's really good. It's really well written and there's great performances. But it was one of those movies that I thought, boy, I woof. Like, it's just so heavy.
Here's what's funny is people who grew up on Star Wars, right? They grew up on it and they were nostalgic about it. You know, Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
They didn't realize that this was a movie for families and for kids, right? And then you get older and the Phantom Menace comes along and you're just like, wait, what happened? And it's like, this is a series for kids and for families. Yeah. I felt like Batman is the reverse. It's like we all grew up and we're like, oh, I love Batman. And Batman grew up with us, and Batman, you know, the Batman films have changed, but it is hard to, you know, I have an 8-year-old. I haven't let him watch Batman Begins. just because this Scarecrow and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let him watch Dark Knight for a while. I would never think to let him watch this because it is dark. I mean, it is Fincher influenced.
Yeah.
And people, like I said before, Seven and Zodiac. Yeah, like I can see those comparisons.
Yeah. Don't get misled by the
The
DC
fun
logo.
posters.
Yeah. This ain't the movie you're going to. All right. So I mean, like I said, it was one of those films that I feel like I just needed to take more pause with, and I need to see it again. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying because, oh, I need to see it again because I need to go on that ride. I need to see it again to really understand. I don't want to say that I love it. I hear
yeah.
people saying this is the best Batman film.
Mm,
I understand why people are saying that because it's so beautifully done and there's so many strengths to it. I don't want to jump on the hype train until I've seen it a second time.
yeah,
So there have been some films that I'm like, that was a hoot. And yes, I say hoot. I'm like, that was a ride. Pay your ticket, go have fun. This isn't
yeah,
that film. And so that's my pause. It's not
yeah.
because I don't think it's great. Yeah, I think it is great. And I think that's why I say screen it and see it in theaters. I'd like to see it in IMAX.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
mentioned I mentioned seeing The Dark Knight in IMAX, just the greatest movie experience I feel like I've ever had. And I'd love to see this too. It is one where I was thinking about our conversation and just thinking about the movie again before we hopped on, and I was like, I think I might like I like this movie a lot. Like I gave it like 4 out of 5 stars. I really
yeah,
liked it. But I was like, I bet I would like it more the second time around. Like I bet I would. So
I
I
agree
got
with that.
I got 3 kids. I don't think I'm gonna be able to see it in theaters again, but I'll watch it at home, I'm sure a bunch of times just because I do love the Batman films.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And that's what I mean. I feel like the second time will give me more clarity
Mm,
on my true feelings of the film. But I mean, I knew when I was watching it that I was watching something special, but you got to know the type of special you're going to see. Like
hmm.
when I
Yeah.
saw when I saw No Way Home, I liked it, but I was on the hype train. I saw it a second time and I said, no, I really liked it. Like it was,
Yeah.
I really understood that. I feel like I need to do that with this one to truly appreciate it, because it is really different and unique. And I didn't expect. I really want to know what Batman's going to look like in 2040, when he's just a serial killer and he's just like,
He's just a vampire.
he's just
Like,
yeah. They go full bat. That's where.
hey, I'll say this. I before we hop off, I'll say one of the most tense moments in the entire film for me. And it also is the film's ability to like live in the moment, be a little bit longer, is when Batman puts his hand into the rat cage where the bat is to
Oh
try to
yeah, yeah.
grab that envelope. That was such a tense moment. And I think it goes to show you Reeve's confidence and his control over this movie and his ability to put together some really great moments. And I just had to throw that in because I was like, the whole time I was like, this is the craziest the movie's ever been. He's gonna get rabies.
If I was Batman, I'd be like, nope.
Like I get one of those little things, those little grabbers, like for trash. Reach
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
right. Or
There
those
it
things you
is.
win at fairs that have a little shark head that
Yeah,
just yeah. No, I understand that. He has no gadgets, so I mean, anyway.
it's true.
Wade, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on. How can our listeners and our viewers connect with you?
Yeah, you can check out my website, wadebearden.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Wade Hance. So it's HANCE. Check out my work, my new book that's coming out here this summer. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about Batman too. I know that a lot of people have opinions about this film. A lot of people have seen it. A lot of people have opinions.
Wow, I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to your next book. I think
Yes,
it's gonna be fun.
I'm excited to be done. But thanks so much for having me on, Steve. It's always a joy, and I'm glad I got to talk to you about Batman.
I appreciate that. I needed to work. What's the word? I needed to dissect or work through this film with somebody, and I appreciate you coming on. And I always have fun time with you.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. And for you at home, a reminder, you can find us wherever podcasts are available, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Podomatic, all those things. You can also like and subscribe us on YouTube, where just like on our channel, we have conversations with industry professionals and friends like Wade to talk about films that are currently out in theaters or are available to watch. And you can also find us on our website, screenfish.net. And if you go to the podcast page, you can download, you can watch this, but you can also download Fishing for More, which are some small group questions to help you get the conversation started if you see the Batman as well. We will be back next week as well for a slightly different film. Or actually, next week we're talking about Disney Plus's series Pam and Tommy. A little bit different than this film, but anyway,
that's on Disney Plus.
Well, okay, it is up here. It's on Hulu in the States.
I was like, I need to like turn the parental filters on. I do not want my children coming close to that television show on Disney Plus.
It's right up there with Encanto.
Oh my goodness. Check out Turning Red and then Pam and Tommy, children.
In Canada, that's how it is. It's all on one thing. Anyway, We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about that series. And so I'm so thankful to have you on, Wade. I appreciate it. And for you at home, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.